You may have heard about CityWorks Expo. For years now, we've been bringing people together to share big ideas for better places. Expo connects innovators across the community and around the globe through an ongoing series of events, conferences, and social media. And our goal is to inspire and support people like you, the ones who have a passion for making their neighborhoods, communities, and cities better places to live, work, and play. Check us out at cityworksxpo.com to learn more. Become a part of the Expo community and share your story. You never know who you will inspire with your big ideas.
Jeff, you missed an awesome presentation earlier by Catherine Fulton that I think really sets the stage for this conversation. She was talking about change and the lessons that she's learned leading change throughout the years that she's been doing this. And what we have here is what is typically a contentious subject matter. I don't know why. Like, we're all thinking about greater speed and more connectivity, and those are things that we think spur economic development, and those are good things, but for some reason that's a contentious thing in many of the communities that have tried to do this. But what I wanted to say was, inspired by that talk, is that, hey, you're among friends here, and Roanoke is an awesome place, I know this, through experience, to experiment and to feel free to find the mistakes to make that no one has made yet. And that was one of the points that she made. And so I think that Roanoke is gonna look to you and your company as a leader as we move forward to find out what broadband looks like for us and for this city. So you're among friends, and you're a sponsor of this event too. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's start off here. Just a couple of facts to lay the groundwork for this conversation for folks who are out of town. Roanoke has formed a municipal broadband authority. They have, or will in the very near future, lay about 50 miles of high-speed fiber in and around the city. I think it's around $3 million investment, et cetera, et cetera. And this follows in the steps of some 450 communities across the United States, right? This is an open access network, which means that essentially, there's many analogies that we could go to for this, but they've built a highway, and any car is free to drive on that highway. And the important thing to note, if you haven't thought about this a little bit, is that this guy right here may have the fastest and most efficient car in the garage. And as such, we're gonna look to you to help lead what this is going to become, and really be a partner with not only the authority, but the city as well. So just want to start off by, that's a very long introduction, but just wanted to say, number one, you're among friends. Number two, we're looking to you for guidance. And number three, what do you got for us? Where's it going to go, man?
That's a good start. Thank you for that introduction. And you're right. I think it's a contentious subject in general because many folks are afraid of competition, right? And it's like, oh, wow, well, we've got this concept of a company that's doing business, and all of a sudden some government entity or maybe taxpayers are paying for something that may dip into the private sector. That's not how Cox views it, though. And I mean, I think we've been very public about saying that we're not opposed to that, because really, it's not so much about who provides the broadband. And I'm obviously biased. I'm going to say that Cox is going to provide the very best services, but that's not the important thing. What's important is, what are you going to do with it? And I think that that's really the question on the table. And so we're seeing a number of different things. And when we're talking about broadband, I mean, we're talking about gig level speed, gigabit per second speed, and so that's screaming fast. I mean, that's a lot that you can do with that kind of broadband, and we provide up to 10 gig for a lot of businesses. And so, I mean, you're talking about major data transfer there. But what we're doing with Cox, and I can tell you a couple of cool things. Roanoke, I think, is a great example, and one of the things I'm excited about being here is we've got a small market here in Roanoke, and it's small in Cox terms, but it's big enough that we can do a lot of very cool things here. We can test, we can learn, we can grow.
Yeah, people refer to that, as the donut hole, right? There are good things and bad things about the donut hole. We all know the bad things. We can't get federal funding, and we're too small to attract a major market provider. But that frees you to do really cool things, right?
It does. And we say when we're doing development, we want to fail fast. And so this allows us to take a market like a Roanoke and many other markets across the country where Cleveland is another good example where we have a small market, and Beeve Health is an example of something that we're doing with Broadband now. And so we formed this partnership with Cleveland Clinic. And home health care is a big opportunity for a number of different, particularly as we have an aging population, and it's harder for people to get to hospitals or to doctors, or it's inconvenient, or they may have certain items, diabetes and other things that need to be monitored that they would want to be able to do from the comfort of their own home. And that's actually an opportunity that we have, and we've developed this with in Cleveland, and we've tested it out there in a smaller market, actually a market for Cox. It's an offset of Cleveland on the outskirts of Cleveland, so very similar in size to what we have here in Roanoke. And so we're testing things like that. The other thing I think that Broadband brings, and I think we think of the other end of the spectrum when we think of we're talking screaming speeds when we're talking gig, but access is a huge, huge deal. Cox is one of many providers that have used and leveraged our network to support particularly families of folks who are underprivileged. And one of the examples of that is we have this program called Connect to Compete. And the example I like to give is I'm a little bit older than probably a lot of you in the room, and when I was in high school, I had to go to the card catalog at the library and research stuff manually. And I know that's a hard concept for a number of people to believe, but that's how it was back when I was in high school. And that's what all of my peers had to do too. So it was even a level playing field, if you will. And so my competition among my peers was that we all had to do that. And my daughter just graduated from high school last year. She never went to the library. I mean, she never had to do research outside of jumping on the internet and doing her research there. And so that would give her a decided advantage over any other student who doesn't have access to broadband. It's a big deal. And so we've got this program we call Connect to Compete. And so we leverage that network that we had, the broadband network we have, to bring $9.95 a month to any student who's on the National Free Lunch Program, which in Roanoke, unfortunately, is about 75%. Roanoke City is about 75% of the kids here. And they get $9.95 a month internet. We give them a free modem. We hook it up for them for free. And so it's another way. It's not necessarily the cutting edge technology, but it's a way in which we bring that and adopt broadband into the future, really, of our company, of our country.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I think about that is human capital, and regions and cities, obviously, from my viewpoint, depend on their human capital to compete more and more, and that's technology agnostic. But when you're in one area that allows their human capital to compete faster and more securely and more reliably than another, then that gives you a tremendous leg up and advantage. And so anything that we can do to empower more of our capital here to do that sort of stuff is better, right? There's another aspect to this as well. As a technology person, I'm very sensitive to this, and that is that there's something about broadband and civic pride, right? We heard from folks from Chattanooga, and there's Kansas City, and different places around the United States that have gone this route, and now can claim that we are a gigabit city sort of stuff. And I wonder if you could just, from your perspective and seeing this in other places, tell us what happens to a city once they can become like a gigabit city, and what that does for the civic pride of that area.
Well, it clearly is an advantage. I think you attract talented, younger, the future of our company to that area, for one thing. But on the other hand, it's going to become table stakes, right? I mean, if you're a company, if you're a fledgling company, if you're a big company and you're looking to relocate, you're going to look for a variety of different things if you're moving to an area. And so for Roanoke, what's important for us is to attract some of these businesses, perhaps to even replace some that have left here in Roanoke. And having broadband access is as important as the other infrastructure of the city. And so, what else do we have in terms of land availability? What do we have in terms of, water, sewer, all these other things, electricity, all these other things that are going to be critical for in building space? I mean, it's another element of that. And so I think that part's particularly critical in terms of attracting those companies. And the reason I think Cox and many of the other companies who serve here in Roanoke are really passionate about attracting those folks, regardless of who the business provider is that it brings economic growth to that particular area. And so that is important. It's a sense of pride. You want to be in a city that's growing. You don't want to be in a city that, people are leaving because they don't have access to things. You want to be the place that's attracting them. You want to be the magnet for those companies.
If I'm making a decision between one place or another to start a business, and I know one at least has that title, it's, subconsciously there has to be some sort of effect. When we talk about broadband and high-speed access, a lot of people like to mention, the rollout of electricity. When it was first rolled out, people could not conceive of why you would need electricity to every single home in the United States. It was just beyond the imagination. But then there were like all of these amazing things that came from that, new businesses and new ideas that were allowed to bloom with all of that stuff. So I want to know what you've seen that may tip us off to what some of those new ways of using super high speed, outside of like the medical community, which is super smart and super close to home here, blow us away a little bit. Give me something to get really excited about.
I think that the important part of the broadband is it's the pipe for just about everything, right? And so I think you have all of your basics. I mean, I would venture a guess that a large portion of the audience here today at some point telecommutes. And so that, whether that be, you don't live in the area where your business is located, it allows you to certainly stay in an area if you need to, and you're among that group. But I think some of the cooler things that we're seeing, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. We mentioned the healthcare. There's a variety of different things, from what we call home automation that this opens up. And
Internet of Things.
What's that?
The Internet of Things.
The Internet of Things. And so so home automation is a good example. The things that I see, Cox dabbles in this, but there are a number of companies that do this, where, you want to, you go away on vacation and you want to change the thermostat in your house, boom, you can do it from your cell phone. Or somebody comes up and they ring your doorbell, and you could be halfway across the world, and all of a sudden on your cell phone, through a broadband connection in your house, a camera pops up and you can see the person at the door, and you can press a button and you can open the door for them. Yeah. And so these are the sorts of things. I mean, let's face it, even our traditional business that Cox has been in, which is entertainment, obviously the cable aspect of it, more and more consumers are consuming entertainment over broadband.
Cord cutters.
They're cord cutters.
Also me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so more and more people are watching the streaming video. That's clearly the wave of the future. And so really what we're talking about here is a pipe into the home that allows you to transport whatever it is that you want in there. And it gives a number of innovative companies an opportunity to reach that customer, including people that, it's an interesting model for us at Cox, because we're providing a broadband connection that allows customers to cut the cord, if you will, to our core business product of video. But that is clearly the wave of the future, is the line into the home. We want to be able to provide that at Cox and allow innovative companies across the world to be able to come up with the solutions for consumers.
Awesome. So I see we have like 3 minutes left. I want to make sure I get this one in and give you time to talk about this one for a bit. But quick story. 2013, I came to Roanoke for what was it called? Startup Weekend is what it was. And the aim of Startup Weekend is to come up with an idea for typically tech-based startup, and run it through the rigor of developing a business plan, and then put it out on the other side and maybe have a working prototype. These things are very popular across the United States. And I came here to Roanoke, and it was held in Meridium, which is a great local company with an awesome story, worldwide reach. And there were like 10 people there, and maybe 1 or 2 are from Roanoke. There were people from Blacksburg. There were people from DC that had driven down. And the winner of that competition was and this is awesome, like no fault to this person, but it was like an invention that helps keep your shoelaces tied during soccer games, which is cool, right? But not what I expected. And so from that like sort of initial, yeah, exactly, and that initial like touch to the technology community that's based here in Roanoke, I sort of started thinking about Roanoke's relationship with technology. And a lot of the things that I am interested in and involved in over the last couple of years have been trying to uncover, what that relationship is and uncover the people who live and work here, because we got some great people who do that, but then grow that and then mature that and find out, what the next step is. And in our last couple of minutes, just get your take on Roanoke's relationship to technology with respect to, tech development kind of stuff, and where you see Cox's role as a leader in that, as potentially a community partner in that over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, clearly, I think having access to the services that Cox provides is a big deal here. I mean, because we have some very smart, innovative people here, and I love the. I think I read this in the program. Think globally and act locally, right? And so there are lots of opportunities for folks to think about things globally, but their ability to connect and interconnect with business partners or other people who are thinking the same thing across the country requires these connections that we're able to provide. So that's a big deal, and that's a big deal for us, is to provide that, whether it be in your home or in your business, is to be able to have the access to do that sort of stuff. And I think from a technology perspective, what we're going to do is we're going to see more and more people on their own developing things, and whether they be the simple stuff like you think of an app for a phone, or whether it be the next big invention that nobody has thought of. And so we've got a pretty cool advertisement actually we use for our product called Gigablast, which is the gig speed for homes. And it talks about, it actually has a kid sitting there, and they're watching this commercial, and they see something, somebody shooting a laser gun, and they're like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if you had little Cheetos that look like a laser gun? Let me invent a 3D printer that prints this, whatever you see on TV at home, so you can eat something that looks like that. I mean, and so
it's the kind of stuff that happens at Expo Wednesdays. You should come sometime.
I should be there. I didn't realize. And so, yeah, this is clearly an opportunity for folks to have access to exchange that data, to grow their business, and quite frankly, for an area like Roanoke, we're going to try to attract businesses here, but there's a lot of organic growth that can occur here with the folks that are already here in terms of building up the businesses that we already have. So it's important for us to be a partner in that.
Awesome. So we're going to look to you guys to help us figure out what this is and make the important mistakes and maybe lead the way for us as we step forward, partner with the city. Thank
Thanks,
you
Dave. Appreciate
so
it.
much. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.